Welcome back to Sticks Tricks. I am Sticks, and today in the shed, I'm showing you how to do the first oil change on your Aprilia Tuareg 660. This is a voiceover. I'm currently editing this video, but it was filmed months ago in the summer when I had around 670 miles on this bike. So if you're a regular watcher of my channel and all of a sudden you see in this video that it's completely stock and it has much less mileage on it than it does in the last video, then that's why. So if you haven't seen the other videos, definitely check them out. I'll have my Tuareg video playlist linked in the video and in the description. At the date of posting, I have over 3,000 miles on this bike now, so definitely, check out my thoughts and some of the awesome upgrades you can do. But this video is showing the oil change and the steps required. So first, let's start out and see what tools and parts we'll need for this job. All right, here's the parts and tools you'll need for the oil change. First off, the oil, Castrol Power One, fully synthetic, 10W50. This is the recommended factory fill for the bike, so I'm going to stick with that for now. The oil filter, this is the part number from the dealer, 82960R. The oil filter does have tightening specs on it, and it does have a different part number on it, 878068. It goes by both part numbers, depending on where you may find it, like online. This is the part number that was on the bag from the dealer, but it's used in many different bikes. That's why it kind of has a couple different part numbers it goes by. And then the crush washer for the drain plug. Don't have a part number for this. It's very easy to find online. Usually it comes with the filter and kits, or if you're at your local dealer like I was, you just ask for one and they'll give you one. You'll need some sort of tool to take the old oil filter off. I just have this cheap oil filter wrench I've had for many years that fits it. The oil filter, the oil drain plug is an 8mm Allen. I have a T50 Torx bit here. It's the same size. It'll work as well. I was just too lazy to find my 8mm Allen. I always have a Torx set on hand. 8mm socket. You'll need this to take the skid plate off to be able to do the oil change, and then of course some sort of ratchet to be able to turn those bits. Container to drain the oil in. I like this clear measuring container I have. You can see exactly the condition the oil's in and exactly how much drained out of the bike, and then some sort of funnel to be able to fill the new oil in, and to top it off, just some sort of cleaner and shop towels or shop rags to be able to clean things up, keep things tidy when doing the oil change. So that's it as far as tools and parts. Now I'll get to actually performing this on the motorcycle. Now onto the oil change process. Here's the Tuareg. I put cardboard under the bike in case there's any little oil drips you don't get, so you don't make a mess there or stay in your driveway or wherever you're working. Things you need to know. Here's the oil filler cap. This just unscrews, and then it's also your dipstick. So you definitely need to know how to check the oil if you're going to do the oil change. How you do that, the bike needs to be warm. Mine is warm. I ran it about half an hour ago around town. So it's not hot to the touch, it is still warm, which that's kind of what you want so you don't burn yourself when trying to do the oil change. So pretty much you'd unscrew this, take it out, clean the end of the dipstick, and then all you do per the manual, you just set it back in. You do not screw it back in, just set it there. And then stand up the bike off the stand, level it off, let it sit there for a second or two to let the oil kind of level off in the oil pan, and then pull the dipstick back out and check the end. There's marks on it right here for the minimum and max. Mine's right between minimum and max. So it's always a good idea, obviously, know how to check the oil so you can put the proper amount back in, and just to know where you're at before you messed with the oil change. So I'm good to go there. I just have this just set back on there for now. As far as everything else, there's your oil filter on the front of the engine right there. And the oil drain plug is right under the engine right here. So the skid plate does have to come off. Don't worry about this section over the exhaust. That is separate. That you can leave alone. All you need to do is remove these 4 8mm bolts. There's one here and here on the front. And then at the very back, there's 2 more right here. So you do not need to touch these silver 10mm nuts. These only bolt like rubber spacers to the pan. to the skid plate, sorry, they don't actually bolt anything or screw into the oil pan of the bike. All right, now that I have the skid plate off, you can see here, those silver 10 millimeters, they hold these like spacers on that just butt up against the oil pan. So those, like I said, you don't need to touch. And then all 4 of the 8 millimeter bolts, they are the same length, so no need to keep track of which ones go where. Just make sure each of them has the washer on it. So now with the skid plate off, we can see the oil filter here. There's a couple of the sensors here for the engine management, and then you can see the drain plug right here. So what I'm going to do now is just clean this area. You know, just there's a lot of grit and dirt from being off-road that's in here. So I'm going to clean all that first, so then there's no chance of contaminating, you know, the new filter or oil with it. So it is a magnetic drain plug. So that's, you know, that's really sweet with keeping any, you know, metal shavings or pieces from flowing around the engine and causing additional wear. So it'll catch all that here. So make sure to clean this and get any, you know, shavings off the plug, you know, from the break-in process and just the running process. A note too, because it happened for me right here. See how there's no drain crush washer on this? It's actually still on the bike. It's stuck up on there. Make sure you get that off, pull that off, and then put the fresh one, you know, make sure to install it properly. Because if you just put a fresh one on here and just try to crimp it or crush it right on that other one, I mean, maybe it won't leak, but, you know, you run a big chance of having an oil leak, and that'd be awful to happen while you're riding and then starve the engine of oil and just make a mess. Okay, so it looks like we got a little over 2 liters or 2,000 milliliters of oil out of the bike. A note, after you initially drain it, so mine initially drained to exactly 2 liters. Stand the bike straight up and count to like 20-30 seconds, and you know the residual oil in that corner of the pan with the bike tilted over, that will drain out. Also a note, make sure to clean the drain plug. I'll try to put it like a still of the previous clip side by side. When I first pulled this out, you can see how clean it's supposed to be. You know, all the crud that was on mine from the break-in process. That is normal for the break-in, just definitely clean it off and then monitor it from then on. I have the new drain plug crush washer back on here, because once you stand up the bike and then you get all the oil out, go ahead, put this back in, torque it down. I'll try to find the torque spec and put it on the screen if you want to use it. I just do it by hand. With these crush washers, you can kind of feel them crush. You get that resistance, and then it gets harder to turn after that. And then you're good to go. Definitely do not over torque this or go crazy and strip out those threads. So now, after I secure the drain plug back in, we'll move on to the oil filter. Okay, so I just loosened my oil filter. This is my first oil change, as I may have mentioned. So mine was incredibly tight from the factory. You can see it kind of got dented up with my tool to get it to loosen. So it is okay to first loosen it without having your drain pan under. It won't drain anything until you just fully, you know, get to fully removing it, when that gasket no longer makes contact with the block. So you might want to move this out of the way when you're first loosening this. It may sound stupid, but if the wrench slips or your hand slips and then you punch your container over and spill your oil, you're gonna have a very bad day. So I moved mine out of the way. Now I've got it back, and now I can continue unscrewing this here. And you can see here the oil we're losing. So I'm just gonna kind of let that drain and slowly unscrew it more and more. Looks like oil's getting all over this kind of harness here. I'd probably recommend, because I've never done this before on this bike, I'd probably recommend just putting like a shop towel over this harness so you don't get it full of oil like I just did. But that's nothing some brake clean can't take care of. So now we're just unscrewing this the rest of the way. and then drain the rest, because this will have oil actually in it, filled in it. The manual actually tells you to pre-fill the new one a little bit, which I'll go over. So now with the oil filter off, just clean this area. You don't need to like clean the threads or anything, but just clean the mating surface, you know, clean up your harness here if you got oil all over it like I did. And now we're gonna go over doing a little bit of a pre-fill on the new filter, and then lubing up the gasket as well. All right, here we have the new filter. So crack open one of your new quarts of oil, and you're just gonna wanna fill it like a quarter of the way. So you can see there's like the spring in there. You're just gonna wanna fill it like about halfway up that spring or so. If you see one of these in person, if the video isn't showing it well, you'll know what I mean. So you just wanna carefully pour some oil in there. And that's really all you need in there. All right, so I just installed the new oil filter. When installing it, I tightened it by hand first. My hand was a little oily, so then I went and followed it up with my tool. It did need quite a bit of tightening with the tool to crush that, you know, rubber washer down. I'm still barely using any force with the tool, but then once it gets, you know, snugged, just leave it there. But it did need a considerable amount of tightening after hand tight, to not, you know, make sure not to leak and to properly, you know, crush that rubber washer as it's supposed to be. Now we need to fill it. So we got, after doing the oil filter as well and standing the bike up with the drain plug out, we got, it looks like 2¼ liters out, or about 2,300 or so, 2,250 or so milliliters. So what I'm gonna do is now filling the bike. I'm gonna start put 2 quarts in it immediately, and then, you know, a smidge from the 3rd quart, and then you're gonna want to start it up, let it run for like 30 seconds to a minute, shut it off, and then check your oil level, and top off as needed. And then while it's running that first time, just definitely check it for leaks. Check the oil filter and the drain plug for leaks. If no leaks are present, once you're done checking the oil and topping it off, just put your skid plate back on. It's just the 8mm bolts. As I said, do not over tighten these. They'll strip or break very easily. They're very small. So snug those up, and then you're good to go. I would say after, you know, your first long ride on it, definitely check the oil and see if it needs to be topped off at all after it's fully warmed up and circulated. And that's really all there is to it. This is just a small note I wanted to make about the bike. So when the first service is due at around 620 miles, you can see the little wrench there, little orange wrench. So that comes on, it will remain on until it's reset by a dealer. As of today's date, there's no software available, like aftermarket apps or software where you can do that yourself, unfortunately. My local dealer in New England charges $50 to reset that. I've heard of people in other parts of the country, the dealer not charging anything, they just reset it for free. So that may depend on where you are. But that's just a note too. It is fine. A lot of people do just leave that wrench on if it doesn't bother you. Luckily it is kind of small, it doesn't hide any parts of the screen. So, you know, it's not hurting anything, and the bike won't run any differently or do anything different with that being on. So that's really up to you, but that was just a note too. It's just helpstick information to know of the steps to, you know, get that little wrench off the machine. In the end, my bike took about 3 quarts to be at the top of the dipstick range. So definitely buy 3 quarts if you're going to be doing this oil change yourself. So with that, this has been Sticks, and thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, don't miss any more of the exciting content. And most importantly, don't forget to have a great day. Until next time.